Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of The Business Therapist. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with your host, Arnell Tanyag. Arnell, how are you doing, man?
Hey, doing pretty good. Number four,
where it's on the map here. It's on the map.
Yes.
Which we're talking about process mapping today. Process mapping is amazing because it's the ticket to your freedom as a business owner. So let's start with the problem. What is the problem that you see most people have? Like, what is causing them to be stuck in their business?
A lot of times what causes them to be stuck in their business, most business owners have this stuff in their head. Like I have these things, the checklist is in my head, the process is in my head, and then I'm the only one who can do it. I'm like, what do you mean you're the only one to do it? Well, I have a certain way, Arnell, that I do it. And I'm like, okay, so is your way, I said, if you're going to hire me, right, and it's in your head, and I'm ready to work for you, I'm really eager, I'm excited, so what do I have to do? Well, I'll just tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what to do. I said, well, I'll just tell you what to do. I will just tell you, and I want you to write it down, and then you'll do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but don't you have like a process, like a checklist or step-by-step or a workflow? Oh, no. I don't have any of that stuff. I'm just going to tell you what to do.
Right.
I said, well, how's that working for? Yeah, I can't keep anybody.
Okay. Tell me about that. Why can't they keep anybody?
Because what happens is when they don't have a process, they're either hiring based on emotion, thinking they have all this work and they don't have enough work. Yep. Or they have a lot of work, and then what they're doing is just telling this person what to do, and the person can't remember everything, and then the owner will go, that person's an idiot because they didn't do it. Right. I said, well, did you give them a checklist? No, they didn't do this. And then when I talk about process mapping or workflows, I go, have you ever had somebody that they were eager, they had great attitude, they had some basic skills, and if you just kind of showed them a workflow or a map or how to do this or a plan, and they're like, you think you could have kept them? Yeah, I think I would have kept them, Arnell. And was it because of their skill level? No, I just didn't do what I needed to do. Well, did you show them your standard or your way you do it? And they're like, no, I didn't show it to them. So, well, whose fault was that? Yeah, it was my fault. Because I said, if I tell them this is the test, all right, I'm working for you. I'm your business development guy. What do I have to do? Mm-hmm. They're like, what do you mean? Well, you need to go to the office. Well, where's the checklist? Where's the playbook? Where's the calendar? They're like, I don't have any of that stuff. I said, well, that's why you can't keep anybody. Yeah. I said, that's kind of brutal. I said, well, because if I want to work for you, how am I doing it if I don't have a guy to help me follow it?
Yeah. So good, man. I think too, like when you're in the process of it without a process written down or a process map, without like it's listen, for me, I'm an idea guy. So for me, getting the things in my head out of my head is very hard. It's like exhausting for me to sit down and be like, how do I do that? Okay. Step one, I guess I do this. Step two, I guess I do that. It's super painful, but I can do it if I make myself get there. I think a lot of times people just they just don't calm down enough. Yes. To then get it out of their head. And so because we don't calm down enough, we're like, I can't do that right now. And so they go build more stuff.
That's correct.
And they were like, but I got to hire somebody. So I hire out of desperation and urgency without ever getting the stuff out of my head. I could have done it if I had just painfully sat down and been still long enough, but I just never did that.
Yeah. And one of the most successful persons I worked with the former owner of BNI, and he was never a process oriented, a big picture guy, really good at people. Mm-hmm. And my friend of mine, Jim Rim, and I would go, Arnell, he's just so good. I said, but the first meeting I ran a BNI meeting, he goes, Arnell, here's the process. I'm just going to tell you what I did. So he said, Arnell, I'm going to have you write it on a napkin. A napkin? So I put it on a napkin. We had no pen. We had a pen and napkin. So I wrote it. Okay, I want you to look at the napkin and I want you to run this meeting. I said, you got to be kidding me. In front of like 12, 30. And I could see why he goes, look, if you can't run this meeting with me, then you're not the right guy because you're not going to be able to do it on the spot. But our whole relationship was, I don't have a process, Arnold. I got it all in my head. So me and this guy, Jim Rim, who did the same thing, look, we're just going to record him. We're going to write down things that he says. Yeah. And we're just going to basically watch what it is and copy it. So and good. And then eventually we go, oh, there's the process. And he goes, well, what do you mean the process? I just do it naturally. And I was like, yeah, but you got to kind of just take a step back. And what we did is, here's what I found out, Chris. Most people have in their head, they don't know how to start. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to take it out of their head. They got it in their head. They just don't go, I don't know how to start this thing. Or I don't even know I'm doing it right. I'm doing it wrong. Yeah. I don't know how to measure it. Uh-huh. I'm like, okay, well, I tell them, what's your result you want? Okay, I want this. Okay, now let's work backwards. Like you reverse engineer the steps. They're like, oh, that's cool. And they're so like, good. Yeah. And when they start believing in that and doing that, they literally can hire people who have basic still good attitude, and put them in the process, and then the measurement becomes objective, not subjective.
Yeah, that's what I want to say earlier. Like when you get the process map out of your head, it becomes easier to figure out who you're supposed to hire, because you actually can match up the job description, the tasks, with the person that's applying. If you don't have the job description, then it's really hard to figure out who you need.
That's correct.
How do you know?
That's correct.
You don't even know what you're asking them to do. You're like, I guess you'll work. Please try to make it work.
That's correct. Because what happened is once they hire the person without a process map, then they just tell them what to do, and they may have the right person eager to do it, but the person's like, well, I did this. What's next? And so what happens is they literally have caused that person to fail because they don't know if the work they really have in head is enough or too much. And secondly, they just feel like, I'm just going to do it this way because I don't really want to take the time and build it. I'm too busy. And I'm like, well, you're not going to keep people there.
Right. Yeah. I'm too busy. I've heard that so many times with business. Like, I'm too busy to try to get this out of my head. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? You got a pair of golden handcuffs again where you're stuck in your business, because if you can't get it out of your head, you'll never replace yourself. Yeah.
And here's the funny thing too, I realized too, is I tell people you want to create a process that doesn't require you doing it. So, and I tell owners, when you're sitting down, you go, okay, you're doing this process. Okay. Now, is it something that you can only do? Like, yeah. So, well, that's not good. We need to create a process that intellectually that anybody can follow step by step, so you can replace yourself. If it's just you're doing it and you're the expert, so what happens, you can't scale the business. We got to figure out a way, unless you hire very talented people, pay them really well, and they can figure it out over time. Or can you dumb down the process that good people go and do the process?
Yeah, those are both great points, because either you hire, if it's really skilled work or like unique perspective, then you have to be willing to pay more for somebody who has those abilities.
That's correct.
Or if you're not willing to pay that much, then you've got to find a way to distill it down into like the bare minimum.
That's correct.
To hire a lower capacity person who could just follow the system. But it's one or the other if you don't want to be a slave to your business.
You're right. It's one of the other. I was talking to a banker, and she was saying, like, my husband's thinking about buying his business. She said, what do you think? I said, well, either buy the business where the process is dumbed down so anybody can follow it, or if you buy a business, then you have to buy where people have to be highly intelligent. You're paying more. And she goes, well, why? What's the pros and cons? Well, dumbed down, you can hire anybody. Dumbed down process, anybody can hire it. And then it has different pros and cons. Somebody has a very technical skill, you have to pay more, and the business development may be different. But it's a preference and choice. You're like,
right.
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that. And it depends on how your husband wants to run his business.
Right.
If it's dumbed down process, or is it a high end process, hires high talented people? And she goes, I never thought about that.
There are pros and cons to both. You're right. I think that's the kind, I would imagine with you as a business therapist, that's the kind of thing that happens. Like in business coaching, people are talking through their options, and you're able to kind of ask them questions that get them to see which of those two options they prefer to choose.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think, and I was telling somebody, it's really around the business model. It's the business model will determine the processes, and that'll determine how you hire the people. And some business models are very complicated, and meaning you have to hire very sophisticated people. Others are very simple. Clean company, you just have to have people clean. Now you have to. It's a simple model to train people on it. The difference is it has still hard to find people, but you can train them on it. Then trying to train a nurse, where you have to have high education and all that stuff. And so I was telling you, it's all around the model, and it's all around the processes. And if you and then here's even harder. If you're a business owner, like I got a guy who owns a delivery service. He does deliver cars, or it's like a vehicle valet or deliver valet. So he delivers stuff. So there's nobody does it. There's no franchise. So he's have to create this out of his own. So he's got to literally take the process out of his head and put it on paper. Because I'm like a unique type of. I said, yeah. So now we have to write the processes, and figure out, is it just because you're intelligent enough, it's owner centric, or can we dumb it down so anybody can do it? Because I never thought about that. Because if we can't dumb it down the process, then we're never going to be able to get you out of the day to day.
What are some of the best hacks that you've sort of given clients to begin to document their process when they didn't know how? Like, how do you have them do that?
There's a video on Vimeo about this one lady who made a cake. Because when you're making a cake, people take a recipe, and it said recipes are just like a checklist. So I tell people, look, watch this video on process mapping, because she says and when you make a cake, there's a checklist. Then she goes, but if you're doing a workflow, it's not a checklist. It's like a treasure map. You know, and so what you got to do is get people to explain. And people, which one's better, Arnold? I said, I personally think the workflow is better, because the workflow means if I call somebody on the phone and they say no, I say this. If they say yes, I say this. But if it's a checklist, it just means I just call and answer. But then if there's a yes, no, or maybe,
right,
I have to figure it out. I prefer the workflow because it simplifies the answers the person to follow. And then once they're able to, they buy into that, then there's things you can use. Like there's a software called Process Street where you can actually take your process, write it down, and you can, like, I do this with my son. Like I have him send emails out, and I write the email list out, tell him to go on a CRM, click this button, here's a picture of this, here's that. And he'll just go in there and say, hey, son, go to this thing, send it out, and he'll knock it out in 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
Because what happens, I just tell him, just go to the Process Street, everything you create, and I'll highlight it, and we'll sit down and go through each one, and he'll just put in Process Street. So when he's not able to work, if I have to get a virtual assistant, I just say, go there and do this. So Process Street is one of the easiest things. Or
street, as in like a road, street, Process Street.
Yeah, Process Street. And there's, then I've been using, like for me, Trello. I just put these boards and say, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this, and it reminds me, and then from there, I will take Process Street and drill it down and give it to my son. He'll just say, hey, go to this thing.
Yeah, I would imagine with Trello, you kind of get the benefit of the checklist, and then with Process Street, you get the workflow. So you kind of get both with.
That's right.
Yeah, I need Trello for all this stuff, like the show stuff. We use Trello for all of our workflow to make sure all the checklists are done. But it's not necessarily a workflow. I mean, there is an order to the checklist, but like I think to your point, it depends on the work. It depends on what you're trying to have somebody do, whether it's a checklist or a workflow, like et cetera. So.
Yes. And each task can be a checklist.
Yeah.
Or it can be part of a workflow or one or the other. I think between Trello and Process Street, you can actually checklist, check it all down. And then if they need more depth, you can go right into Process Street and then it drills down. But the good thing about it, and it's easy. I see a lot when owners take that role and they go, I'm going to process my business, every step of it. Then they can literally just get out of their head and make it objective, because now they can put somebody in there. When they don't have the process out of their head, every decision they made about somebody doing something for them is subjective. Well, they're an idiot. They should have done this. Well, there's no process. It's not their fault. How do you check that?
Listen, that is a big doom loop that will follow you the rest of your career. If you never get it out of your head, you're going to always hire people and think it's their fault they didn't execute. And then you're going to try somebody else and they're not going to follow through, and you're going to think it's their fault. And so pretty soon you're going to be so disgruntled about hiring that you're going to think it doesn't work.
That's correct.
But you just didn't get it out of your head.
Yeah. And I always tell people, like I have a couple of clients who want to hire people, and I tell them, look, where's your process? Where's your checklist? Okay. What's the most important about the process checklist? Have them do that work first in the filtering process before we hire them. Because if they can't do that basic work with a good attitude, then your orientation is going to be, you're going to be letting a lot of people go because they're just not going to do the work. They can't do the work,
Do you work with clients on orientation? Like, hey, here, let's talk through your orientation once you hire somebody.
Yeah, I talk usually through their orientation. I actually talk about their hiring process. I said, map out the process you want them to do. What do you want to test in the preliminary? Like we call filters. What do you test beforehand? Well, what do you mean? What skills you want to test? Well, I want to test them. They can do this. Or they handle change. You're like why? Because at the front end, if you can ask all those questions and do all those tests, it saves you a lot of time.
So you're not just helping people with the thought process of how do you get it out of your head and into a process map, but then also what's your process for hiring, and then what's your orientation once you hire somebody, and so you'll take people through all that.
Yeah, because I find out like I have a contractor right now that I said you got to meet with your assistant and map out your process. What's the jobs and what's working? What can she do? And then you need to create a playbook for her so that book gets thicker and thicker. And then if she goes out on vacation or something like that, you just pass the book to somebody else. It could be a bunch of checklists. It could be a bunch of workflows. But then what happens is most people are smart. They will study that book and make it better. But they need a book. They need something. Something to as a foundation. And a lot of the challenges, they will. And I tell people the only reason they don't grow in the role because there's nothing given them in the beginning. Now, if they know, hey, here's a book, I got this checklist, I have these workflows, and I want you to add to it.
Yeah.
And now they basically, because they're doing it every day, it becomes the standard, you know?
Yeah. Systems people, I think, are really good at taking something that currently exists and making it better.
That's
like,
correct.
You give them and I think for us as entrepreneurs, like it's important for us we don't have to get it perfect. Like you don't have to have a perfect system, but you got to have a starting point. Like get the 20% that makes 80% of the results happen in your business on paper or somewhere. And then let the systems people come in and make it even better.
That is correct. And the interesting thing is the systems people, once you give them the results once you measure, they're just going to tweak it.
Yeah.
And they're not there. Right. And I always tell people when the people they go, let me see your process. Let me see your system. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does it work? And so, and I'll go, let's just tweak here and there and then let's leave it alone. Yeah. Because you don't, once it's working, you don't mess with it.
Yep. Exactly. You know? Have you found like a way to capture or have your clients capture their processes is by simply turning on a video or recording their screen and having them talk through what it is they're doing? Like just, okay, I'm going to the thing and then we're doing this, and they just capture it as they do it.
Yeah, what I usually have them do, it's interesting you say that. I'll go to them and say, okay, look, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a time journal. Just write down everything you do from like the time you get up in the morning to start your business to the time you close. Just write down specifically what you do, and then we categorize. And they're like, oh my God, Arnie, I'm doing all this stuff, all this stuff. And I said, now can we break it up into like a workflow? Can we break up a process? Can we take those chunks, put them together and categorize it, and then we could pass it on to somebody. Like I have a heating air conditioning guy call me, Arnie, I want to hire, I got a guy who wants to invest in my business. And I really think I need it. This money will help me get an admin person. I said, well, have you mapped out? He goes, well, I think it's 8 to 10 hours. I said, well, but you're proficient. You're really good at doing it. It might be 10 to 15. He goes, well, but what else can I do? I said, there's other stuff you can do in marketing you're not doing right now that you probably are subconsciously not thinking about it. Right. Yeah, I never thought about it. I said, so because we really need to take a step back and write down what you do, write down what marketing stuff you do. And then what's basically I call non-negotiable stuff you want that person to do really well. He goes, yeah, I never thought about that. And once we get that stuff on paper, then we can hire based on that role. He was like, yeah. And because once you know the role and the specific tasks or the workflow or the processes, then it's just having somebody who's got a great attitude and has some basic skill and they can learn it. But if you don't have it, you're just sending them into the battlefield, hoping they know how to use the gun or how to do all this stuff.
Yeah. I love this digital age we're in because I think things like, our phones provide ways for us to capture our process. Yes. Like I was trying to think of different examples. Like if I were a plumber, which I'm not, and I were trying to show up to a job site, and I'm like, okay, I just turned my either audio, my voice memo app.
That's correct. You do that. Yes, right.
Right. Or my video. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to talk you through what I'm doing right now. I'm looking at the pipe and I'm listening for this noise. And I opened this part of the junction and you just start talking through how you're thinking about the project. That would go a long way in helping other people understand how you think about your process.
Yeah, you're right. And I've done this before. I've actually gone with some people from start to finish on how they do their process. Let me go watch this. Or, there's and you have given me a good point. Like Evernote has an app where you can share it with your team and you can just record it. And then once they record it, syncs to you. So that's a good idea of having that, because once you can get somebody to document what they do or watch them what they do. Yeah. And then they have a natural rhythm to it. Right. But they had never actually sat down and documented or have somebody watch them. Right. That's what we did with a former owner of BNI.
And that's what you did with your BNI guy.
Yeah, and we did that, and we'd watch it, we'd record it, and me and the other guy would go, okay, Aaron, here's what we do. We'd bounce ideas. We just copied it.
It's perfect. It's exactly what you did. Yeah, it's perfect. I love that. I also think if you were doing like not like out in the field like a plumber, but more technology-based with like websites or clicks or things. Yes. There are some Chrome extensions like Screencastify.
Yes, I've seen that.
Do you use that?
Yes.
It's a Chrome extension. And when you record your screen, I think it limits it to 10 minutes. But when you record your screen, you can actually record the screen and your voice talking through. Like, okay, guys, so I'm going into the thing and we're doing this, and you just talk through your mouse clicks, and then it'll save it to your Google Drive automatically. So like in terms of like if you're using G Suite or anything that makes it shareable, then everything's there. But I just think like to your point, process mapping if you don't, like, if you're an entrepreneur and you're an idea person, but you don't know how to like get the system out of your head, like sometimes it's just about capturing, which is what we're talking about. Capture what you do.
Yeah, that's correct. Or, you know, what happens is people have a great idea. They don't know how to start. So then they go, hey, can you help me figure out how to start? Or they already have the idea, they're getting going and they just like, it's not working. What steps am I missing? You know, or I have people call me up and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. And can you just go through my process and just tell me if I'm doing if my stuff in order is right. I'm like, well, why did you do this? And why did you not do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of felt like, oh, you're on the right track. And they're like, but why do you do this? I never thought about it. I should go talk to an attorney. I didn't talk about this. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So a lot of times they do a process based on their own experience or knowledge. And they just want to have somebody go through and just listen if it's working or not, what's not working, what can they add into it.
It's so valuable to have somebody else look at your system or your process. I was, when I was creating this agency, it was all in my head. And I couldn't, here's the interesting thing. I couldn't carry more than about 7 clients until I started to feel like overwhelmed by the details because I was keeping it in my head, right?
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I have to go do this. I have to remember to do that. I have to remember to do this. And so like, there was no checklist. There was nothing. I just had to remember it all.
That's right.
And so if you listening to this are an entrepreneur like me, where you're keeping it all in your head, know that you keeping it in your head is a ceiling on your growth because you can only keep so much in your head, and your freedom lives on the other side of you creating a process map. Because once I brought in an operations person, right, to just like you do for clients.
Yeah.
She was able to look at my process. She's like, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know what I do.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
She's like, okay, we'll start to document it. So I did. And she's like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? And pretty soon we got it all captured in Trello.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's awesome.
And now it was out of my head and I didn't have to remember, which is exactly what you do for people. You're telling them, what about this? What about that? How about this? So you help people get it out of their head, which is so important because you guys, your ceiling is happening because you're keeping it in your head.
Yeah, you had a good point. I think you said you had a really good point is when you can get it out of your head and you don't have to remember.
Yeah.
The business tells you what to do.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
There's no ceiling in the business.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think once you have to start thinking about it because it's not working well or it's not done well, then you slow up.
So that just made me think when I was fresh out of college, I worked at Starbucks and I was newly married, and it was like one of the most blissful moments of my life because I didn't bring work home with me.
That's right.
I punched a clock, and when I went home, and I just showed up the next day and I did what was required of me because there was a system. There was like a thing to do. I think when we carry it in our head, we never get to clock out of our business. You know,
That's right. And a lot of business owners, when the process is in their head, they never clock out. And then what happens, they think about the process. And then when people are involved, it gets worse because they understand, well, why didn't it work well? And I'm like, well, do you have it written down? And like, no, it's in my head. I just tell them what to do. And like, and it's a vicious cycle again and again. And then when you get them to write it down, they're very nervous to hiring somebody because they're not really sure. And it's just spirals down again.
Yeah.
You know, it spirals and because they're not. And it's funny, when they work for somebody else, if they work for somebody successful, that person they work for had a process. So when they go work for themselves, they don't think they really have to because they just got to go out and build it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of scary.
I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is like, one, capturing what you do that's in your head doesn't have to be so hard. Like it feels hard when you think, oh, I have to write down my system. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I do. I just do it.
That's correct.
But if you actually just turn on your camera or your voice recorder or something that like, and you talk through what you're doing, somebody else could actually write down what you said. Be like, oh, okay, well, here's what you do. Bump, 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 bump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think the second thing I'm taking away is the benefit of having outside perspective, like what you provide, Arnell, in the business therapist and the business coaching that you do, like asking questions about the process so that people get a better process.
You're right. And I think that the hardest thing is you have to have somebody from the outside ask, I always tell people they're unbiased to the situation here, but biased to your success. They're just going to ask questions and help you take it out of your head so somebody else can do it for you. You know, and once you buy in that belief, then you really want to get rid of everything.
Yeah.
You know, you really want to get in that owner's box. I want to be the owner. I want to be owner. Well, to get in the owner's box, You got to process map everything around here, and eventually you can get there. And a lot of them think I have to do it all, know it all. And I tell them, no, you just got to put it on paper so somebody else can follow and then you can lead.
Yeah.
Then you doing all the work.
Right. Yes. The owner's box. I love that.
The owner's
box. I think that's where we all wanted to get to when we started a business, but then we got like sidetracked by our business, and
that's correct.
All the things we keep in our head. So good. I love it. Well, Arnell, if people want to learn more about how you help them process map, or how you work as a business therapist and a business coach, where can they go to connect with you?
They can go to my website, which is www.tanyag.net, TANYAG.net, or they can just reach out to me and call me on 757-752-8169. Perfect. And then if they leave a message, hey, I watched your show and the business therapy, I'd like to talk to you, and I'll call them right back and reach out to them.
I love it. Yep. It's good, Arnell. I love the work that you're doing, because I think a lot of being an entrepreneur can be a lonely journry. And having somebody to talk through what's in our head, like, sometimes our spouses don't understand, or even the other bit, like everybody's, sometimes we don't even understand. We're always judging our own actions.
That's right.
By what we see externally from ourselves. And so it's a crazy ride as an entrepreneur. And I love the idea that there's a business therapist to help us see what's true and what's right for us. So I love the work you're doing. So good. Thanks, Arnell. I'll catch you in the next episode.
All right. Thanks, then. See you, Chris.